all we fundamentally have is our experience. It's not our narrative, it's our experience, even the experience of your own narrative. The more we engage with our humanness, the more rich life becomes.
We take the healing so seriously sometimes. We're like, I'm on a healing journey.
To focus on the driver behind the doer. What is driving your behavior right now? Spend more time on the awareness phase.
Hi, welcome to Who Would Have Thought? My name is Sasha Lukavchenko. I'm the founder of the Somatic Therapy Practice. And here I sit with successful entrepreneurs, founders, therapists, and simply amazing humans from different walks of life to go deeper beyond successful success stories. Here we get real. We go deeper into what brought people to where they are now, their pivots, challenges, what helped them, what didn't help them, and share vulnerable stories that resonate with all humans on the same path. And today I sit down with Steven Ebbers. Steven is a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, the founder of Breath Life Space, and the proud psychotherapist of Somatic Therapy Network, where he guides people through deep somatic work using breath, nervous system education, and trauma healing frameworks. His path into his work started from his own search for healing and clarity, which led him through years of personal practice and training across India, Italy, and the United Kingdom. What I appreciate about Steven is how he brought together science, embodiment, and lived experience without the spiritual bypassing that often surrounds this field. His approach is grounded, honest, and focused on real integration rather than quick highs. In this conversation, we dive into moments that shaped him, the breakdowns that resurrected his life, what breathwork can actually do, where its limits are, and what it takes to hold space for deep emotional processes. I'm excited for you to hear his story. Welcome, Steven.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. So you started as a breath worker and trauma-informed facilitator after your own healing journey. Mm-hmm. Tell us more about it. What was the moment or experience that pulled you into this work?
Quite a couple of things, actually. The more I think about this, the more where it all started was actually my father being a trauma therapist already. And I think at such a young age to have exposure to that kind of work already, it starts to make you think about how these things work, right? I didn't grow up in a business family. I grew up in a psychology family. And from there, I ended up studying psychology as well, where I did a bachelor and master's. But funnily enough, I think at that time, it didn't really click. I think this type of work, like what does it actually mean? It was still like in the abstract world of knowledge and I don't know, gray, white men and that kind of world. I think what really started to happen for me was that in the world that I grew up in, because I'm from Holland, I'm from Amsterdam, right? Which it's a world where everything is quite taken care of. Things are quite smooth. Everything works. There's not that much difficulty. So also healing of what? For what? I mean, I came from a loving, nice family. I have two sisters who are all okay. It was more at the point where I started to realize that, yes, on an abstract level, everything made sense. But on a feeling level, very little was happening. And I actually have a lot of clients who say that as well. Like, I understand it all, but I don't feel it. Is a sentence that often comes back. And I think that very much applied to me as well. Like on paper, on a head level, everything was fine, but the feeling level was kind of missing. And I think there were, looking back, so many experiences where I used to be, for example, professional athlete. And there was a point where I was significantly underperforming. And yet I had no idea why or what was happening for me. Because I couldn't actually feel it. I couldn't experience it in any way. And then later in life, I went through sort of like the classic burnout without even knowing. And that went on for like a full-on year almost, because the capacity to feel just wasn't there. So for me, when you ask me about healing or where does it start, like I think it's more a realization of what was lacking, which was the whole embodied feeling experience for me. I remember once on a hockey pitch where I just froze. My whole body just stopped working, right? Sitting behind a desk with like this horrible grinding chest feeling. But also on the opposite side, I remember once being at a festival, where suddenly something clicked for me and something just opened up and I felt like extreme like joy and happiness. I was like, oh wait, this also exists. So I think it was more like those micro moments of like entering the ends of the spectrum of experience. And suddenly all of that sort of head level material started to like materialize into a felt experience. And that was, that was big to suddenly feel, like, oh wait, I'm not.
Steven, this is so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing your story and how you came to the stage where you started to feel. And I find this so profound because in so many ways I see also across my clients, across people close to me, and in general in society that we have this almost as an epidemic. It's like people unable to truly feel. And how you were describing these micro moments of feeling, like these glimpses of, oh, I actually feel frozen. I can recognize this. Or, oh, I actually feel joy and I can recognize this. That already shows how you are expanding your inner capacity to feel. And this is amazing. How did you understand that this is the path forward and you need to do more work to start feeling? What was this pivotal moment for you? Or maybe multiple?
The way I experienced it, at least, it was almost forced upon me, right? And I think that's why a lot of clients eventually come as well, right? It's almost forced upon you through your experience. Like there's a point where there is no other option. You've been operating one way and you just hit a wall. And the body starts to hurt, or you get upset, or you get angry, or you get depressed, or whatever it might be, right? But it's almost forced upon you. And for me, it was no different. And I think what made it very clear to me as well when I was doing, I also did a background, or I had an education in coaching, right? And I started doing a lot of coaching work with people. And there was also in the conversations that I noticed, like in a lot of coaching work, we were just talking. We were just replacing one narrative with another narrative, but the underlying mechanisms weren't necessarily changed on an emotional feeling level. And I think that made me so aware of the fact that, if I just keep approaching everything from a head level, I'll experience the same. It will be the same. I can replace my narrative. Sure. Right. And that can be very powerful and can be very helpful for people. But it was really for me in the experiential value of life, really, that forced that change on me, where I was like, okay, all we fundamentally have is our experience. It's not our narrative, it's our experience, even the experience of your own narrative. So that's really all I have. So isn't it like deeply valuable to spend your life on exploring what that then means, right? If you ask people, like, I can give you anything you want under one condition, you don't get to experience it. Or the opposite, you get to experience, but I don't give you what you want. Everyone will choose the experience of it, right? So for me, it was more over and over the realization of like, it's in the experience of. So then it was just like, okay, fine. Let's figure out where we get to experience. And then anything is an option, right? Even the things you hate become enjoyable because it is an experience. And the things you love are very valuable because you get to experience it. So for me, I think it was more a gradual process. There wasn't like one moment where it clicked. It was like that ongoing reality check.
I really love how you were speaking about the lived experience. Because our language is just so limited. We can never fully describe what we're feeling to another person, and then our subjective experience of emotion can be different from time to person, like anger or shame or guilt. We all can relate to this in somehow, but you will never feel what another person feels. So even if I really, really wanted to make you experience joy, I would be like, this is joy, like, look at this. I would not be able to transmit this to you fully and as an embodied experience of, I feel it in my toes, I feel it on the tips of my fingers, I feel it in my nose, whatever.
Yeah, totally. Yes.
Yeah. So how did you understand that the breath work is the tool that really works for you? Did you try any other tools before you landed on the breath work? How was your journey towards becoming a facilitator in the end? Walk us through that.
Yeah. Well, there was a randomness to it. There was an element of, okay, I'm in. Now what? What module? What way of doing it? And it was from there that when I was looking back on my own experience, I remember very clearly. I was 24, 25, and I signed up to this very cool little program, which was only 4 days, and it was really designed to help young people after university to pick on a direction of where they wanted to go. And we did all these things, right? We did like, I know, a bit of drama work, some journaling, some dancing, and all these like your classic somatic experiences. Like it was basically an amalgamation of like, I don't know, 10 different techniques that one could use. But I really remember that at some point, this a bit odd looking dude came on. He had this curly hair and his clothes were a bit off, and it was such a character. And he walked in and he was like, right, everybody just lie down. I was like, okay, fine. Because everything before that was like very well introduced and very well packaged, and there was a theory, And he just came in, he was like, lie everyone down. And he just made us breathe. He just made us breathe and make sound. That was all. And within 20 minutes, the whole room kicked off. And it was fascinating because we did so little. And yet something just clicked, something just happened. And that really stayed with me. So since then, every time when I was on trips, and there was some sort of breath work, I didn't even know what it was back then. I wouldn't even classify it as breath work. He called it sounding, I think, even. And but it was definitely, looking back, a breathwork experience. So I'd always been already engaging in breathwork as such. Your classic, your Wim Hof type exercises online or here and there. That was for me the way. So when I had to pick a module, when I was like, okay, I want to use the body, the breath just felt like the one that was always there along the way, both in an experiential way through workshops, but also like, you've been breathing all your life. So might as well start with that one because I already know how that works. Like I don't have to learn anything new. So that's why it became breathwork. But I have to say, like along the way, I think I didn't step away from the breath, but I do really feel like I've very much shifted in what it does and what it means, breathwork. Because one of the things I often see this as well is that there's a big confusion between the tool and the goal. So many people, they ask for breath work. Well, first of all, what does that even mean? There's like 50 versions of it. And second is like, now I'm going to do breath work. Whereas the way I got to understand the breath now is just a way in. That's all it is. It's just a way to engage with what is alive for you. And it's a reflection of that. It's a mirror of that. However you are, that's how you breathe. So rather than approaching it as we're going to intervene and change your breathing, which we also do, obviously, I prefer to use breath more as an entry point into what is alive in you and just see, and more like an analysis rather than, so almost dropping the work part and going into breath. And see what's alive. How is your breath a reflection of how you are? And from there, that can take many shapes and forms because then we're already in. Then we're already in the experience. We don't need to do more work for that. And that took a while to click. To not let it be the big breathwork performative show, but actually what I got to understand is the essence of it. That is evolved in itself quite in a different way, like from what I was doing, 5 years ago.
Beautiful. Yeah. And to me, what I'm hearing is this is the shift which moves you from the spiritual bypassing, like, I can do the breath work, I can do my psychedelic trips, I can do the things.
Yeah.
From this to, I can do basically anything. I can use any tools as long as it really allows me to go deeper within myself and understand myself, how I am right now in the reality. Not something that I will afterwards put on my Instagram post, and brag about to my friends, but rather the deep internal work that becomes accessible once you use the right tool for yourself.
Yeah. No, exactly that. Yeah.
Also, how you shared about this experience that you had at the age of 24. I think this is so important, especially for young people, to develop these programs that are allowing them to learn these tools early on when they're just starting to get curious about the world, because the earlier they have access and understanding of their breathing, it will just change their life.
Yeah, huge. No, I think it's such an important moment. And I think, if anything, we're going to need more of that. Like, I think the only thing that truly sets us apart from AI is our humanness. So the more we engage with our humanness, the more rich life becomes. rather than just a passive receiver of whatever is outside of us, to really like learn how to be in life, because that's what happens in the end. Yeah.
When you started going deep within yourself, what surprised you the most?
Well, first, the thing that surprises you is, or surprised me at least, is like, there's always more. There's always more. You can always go further. There's always another level to it. What surprised me as well is that even the same issue that you're working on, even when you, I don't know, quote unquote, solved it or whatever, it will come back in a different shape and form through a different lens. Right. And I really noticed that, for example, with like, I mean, a classic topic in any therapy is always the parents. Right. So what really surprises me is how so many things can be completely true at the same time and still be totally conflicting. Like, it is possible for, I don't know, if you talk about parents, it's possible that they did, in theory, the worst job ever and the best job ever at the same time. And it's just depending on where I'm at that moment in time, through which lens I look at them and how I experience that history, right? Like, oh, that wasn't good and I'm going to resolve that and now I feel good again. And then as I get older, or I'm thinking maybe about kids, I'm like, wow, Jesus Christ. That's difficult. That is difficult. Okay, maybe it was all right after all. It was just my experience of that law. Right? And that I find fascinating, that understanding just changes and changes, even of the same things. And I think there's also a trap in that, because I think there's a trap in the element of surprise. Because I think what I see a lot as well is almost the development of almost a personal development addiction in a way. Like, that's my new personality. That's my new persona I personally develop. It's funny, actually, yesterday I was talking to a friend and we were talking about a situation, and I said, focusing on progression over perfection, because for a lot of people that's already an issue. They say, I only did it 1 out of 10 times. Great, you did it once. And he interrupted me and he said, or just live. And I was like, yes, you're so right. Like, just living, just being, and not always being focused on what's the next surprise, what's the next thing I can discover about myself. Actually enjoy the gain space and be in it. I think that's an important element as well. So yes, I like to be surprised by what else I can discover, but also take time to just be in it. It's an important component for me. Yeah.
This is so interesting how, when you're saying like same things can reveal itself from different angles throughout your life, and you can re-experience them in a different way. And how important it is not to get attached to any of this experiences, like, okay, I discovered that my family did a shit job, so they're shit forever, right? But rather allow yourself to mold and to have this mending experience within yourself that allows you to just change, right? Evolve, have this liquid matter work on itself, right? And
like an ongoing relationship with your past and what happened. And how it shapes you in that moment in time. And that there's no fixed truth in that. I think that part is for me important. Yeah.
What helps you to reconcile this conflicting parts of yourself?
Maybe not taking yourself too serious. There's something about the sentence that came up for me was like the divine comedy, almost like in the end, it's all just narratives and parts, right? Make any of them as true as you want. Neither of them is true. That helps me to reconcile it. It's just me blending with one of them for a moment of time. And I think the more you step in and out of that, the more you realize, like, oh, okay, fine. There is no singular truth in that. No singular truth in me, for that matter. And I think that really helps me. I remember, it doesn't really apply to what you're saying, but it does help me to think about this, was that, Esther Perel, right? And she was talking about one of the things that relationships do to us is that we don't have to hold two truths at once anymore. Because in the past, we had to negotiate our little devil and our little angel. And she's like, what happens in a lot of romantic relationships was that you get to outsource one to the other. And you get to only be the devil or only be the angel because the other person serves the other one. And I think that really stuck with me, like to stay aware of the fact that you have both at all moments in time, and probably a third, fourth, fifth one. So make your pick and laugh about it every once in a while, about your own silliness and the story of who you think you are. Yeah.
We take the healing
Mm.
so seriously sometimes. We're like, I'm on a healing journey and I'm gonna work on my trauma and I'm like going through it step by step. And the image that comes to my mind sometimes is the golem from The Lord of the Rings, like, my precious healing. And that I feel takes away so much aliveness, so much of the just the joy of the experience that we can have.
Yeah.
Of course, sometimes it's excruciatingly painful and very different, and we need to really take care of ourselves within this moment, but also not allow this to overpower the rest of our lives, right? And be like, okay, we've dug out of a bit of a rut today, so we did well, you know, or we are in the bottom of the pit today. Okay, let's go through it. Like, it's fine. Like, look at me at the bottom of the pit. But you know, we came out of this before. We will do this again, and it's just so important, really, to have
space for the opposite. Yeah.
The space for the opposite. And it's also really interesting that the most advanced spiritual teachers that I've ever saw, you know, on video, on tape, you know, heard them speak, always have such a fun, giggly personality.
Yeah.
They're just, they went through so much shit in their lives, but they came out just like, okay, like, this is just life. Like, you know, let's make a joke out of it.
Yes.
I think there's so much wisdom in that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steven, for sharing. Yeah. When you're working with the entrepreneurs and founders, and I know that you're working with the corporates a lot, what do you see as the common patterns and what they often overlook?
Well, when we talk about founders or high-performing people, what in my opinion is often overlooked is the driver behind the behavior. So an emphasis on behavior. I'm a founder, therefore I need to do X, Y, Z. And then eventually they hit a wall, and then they come, as in, what am I even talking about in that sense? But then sometimes people show up and they say, I used to do this, now I want to do something else. Or what should I do? And it's very much on the doing. Whereas, if I'm super honest, I'm not that interested in the doing. Do as you please. Do as what you think is best. What I find more intriguing, from experience, what I think helps people more is to focus on the driver behind the doer. What is driving your behavior right now? And I think that is more helpful than focusing on different doing, because the way that you were doing before had a driver. You weren't just randomly doing. And often with, for example, founders, you get some sort of deep need to convince a parent that they're good enough. And that's why you're burning yourself out, right? Or someone in school said something, or a teacher, or you did a presentation and, I don't know, you got bad feedback, and now you have to prove to the world that you're worthy. And therefore you need not 50 million investment, but 1,000 million investment to show, right? And then when that fails or you crash, don't replace the doing, figure out the driver that was doing the doing. I think for me, that's where the real value is. And I think that is often overlooked, because otherwise, yes, you can change the doing, but the driver haven't changed. So you're still not actually in the driver's seat. You're still reactive to what has happened in your life. So that's what I always try to emphasize, right? I don't care about what you do, but let's be clear on the driver behind the doer, so that you can actually make a decision. And that's for me where freedom lives, right? And I've seen enough founders who have entire marketing strategies, entire sales strategies, entire company strategies for that matter, being driven by a driver that is fundamentally an 8-year-old trying to prove themselves. Now, would you let an 8-year-old run your marketing campaign? Well, probably not. So don't ask me about your marketing campaign, but at least make sure that it's coming from the grown-up in you. And I think that is often not valued enough.
As a founder and entrepreneur yourself, how did your relationship to responsibility, leadership, and self-regulation changed as you were growing your businesses and expanding the impact?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't necessarily classify myself as an entrepreneur. And I have massive respect for people who play that big game. And I think that is not me. I'm more interested in the vertical than the horizontal. So like I'm more intrigued by the individual and what is more in the individual than reaching another 100 individuals at the top level, 10%. And the more I pushed against that natural tendency, the more it took me down. So I've really had to learn multiple times. It even happened to me recently again, where, you know, I moved to a new city, I moved to a new country. I have to set up everything again. Like I was working in London for 10 years, then I moved to Lisbon. So I had to set everything up here. And I stepped into like the founder, the entrepreneur position, because that's what I've seen and that's what's needed. And of course, when you work as a therapist or you're a freelancer, you have to approach it a little bit like a business because it's the world that we live in, but to not get caught up into the skill element of it. Like that for me is of literally vital importance. As soon as I start to think about skill, that's when my whole body just starts to slowly grind down. It just stops working. I go numb. I become unpleasant to be around. And I turn into this tank that just keeps moving until it just grinds to a halt. And yeah, that happened to me in the past. And it happened to me relatively recently. And I really had to go back. And that's where the regulation piece comes in, is that last time the recovery took me 2 years. Now it took me 3 weeks, right? And that's the difference. And I think that's also important. Like sometimes when clients say like, oh, when will this ever be stopped, or will I never have that again? No, you'll probably have it again. You're alive, period. You'll have bad experience. You'll have moments of difficulty. But the regulation piece is more about becoming more and more aware of like, okay, what were all the signals that I decided to ignore? What was the driver behind them? Okay, I'm in a new environment, and a part of me that needs to tick the safety box is kicking in, and it's applying the template that has seen that is safe, which in my case was entrepreneurship. But in my world, that doesn't cut it. I need to approach it from a more authentic, slow build place. And then in 2 years, everything will be fine. And that's okay. And I can take my time. Yeah, that's very important for me to stick to. Because otherwise I'm not the most pleasant or best version of myself. Yeah.
This is so important that you're sharing this, and thank you so much, because I'm sure that there's a lot of listeners on this podcast who are going to deeply resonate with what you're saying, because in so many ways the society and this capitalistic world that we're living in is almost imposing on us the certain things that we have to do, like go race, go scale, go push towards that direction, which will ultimately prove that you are successful. But when our body starts to give us signals that this is not our path, how important it is to listen to the signals so that you can recover faster and pivot to the direction that actually is aligned with yourself, rather than just hearing what other people are saying and struggling because of this and not living your own life and surrounding yourself with this numbness as a protection from the hostile environment. Yeah. Thank you so much, Steven. As we're wrapping up this episode, if you could leave our listeners with one idea about breath, healing, personal transformation that you wish more people understood, what would that be?
Spend more time on the awareness phase. Deep sigh. No, the reason I'm saying that, I think that it goes back to a little bit what I was saying before. A lot of this work is so focused on the intervention, what to change. Whereas I've seen for myself and for so many people that if we really first get to understand, and that's not just head, that's also embodied, a lot of issues dissolve by themselves, right? For me, it's no different from when you're with an upset child. They just want to be seen. That's it. So focusing on deeply seeing and listening and hearing, just spend most of your time there. And then from there, we can start to think about all the interventions that are needed to change that. But I think that is an important piece. And I think in current society where, like you just said, it's so much emphasis on speed and scale and more, that there's not enough time spent into actually understanding. And that takes slowness. That takes time. So a willingness for it to be messy, a willingness for it to not fully understand it, to not fully know, and learn how to be in that. And I think once you spend enough time there, the rest will often follow by itself. It doesn't need anything huge anymore then. For a majority, not for everyone, obviously.
Thank you so much, Steven, for sharing your story with so much honesty and depth. What stood out to me is how much work is shaped by your own lived experience, not just theory, and how you've turned your own comprehension of what is the subtle driver behind your behavior, what are the subtle numbness and subtle emotions that are converging within you, all these different parts which seem conflicting at the time, and being able and learning how to hold them together, how all of this you channel back into work with your clients, so others can meet themselves where they are with the same honesty and the same depth.
Yeah.
And this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For those listening, if this conversation sparked something in you or made you curious about breathwork or somatic healing, you can explore more of Steven's work at breathlife.space or book a session directly through our platform at somatictherapypractice.com. We will include all of the links in the show notes so that you can find Steven. If this episode resonated, share it with someone else who might need it, and know that mental health support, therapy, or guidance is always available here for you. Thank you for tuning in, and see you at the next episode.